Welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who always had faith in English teams.
Wow.
His name is Taylor Rockwell.
I didn't. I don't regret it because I didn't see either one of these coming, and I don't think a lot of people did. But I certainly didn't see this one coming the way the first half went.
Exactly. Yeah, so you could have guessed maybe Spurs would win this before the match. Mm-hmm. You would not have guessed it at halftime when they were, 2-0 down on the night?
Yeah. I mean, if we want to go into this really quickly, because,
3-0 in aggregate?
Yeah, Spurs end up getting the results with the, 3 thrown aggregate, but they go through on away goals. Mm-hmm. That seems to have annoyed people, as away goals always do, but that's the way it works. But,
we all knew the rules going in.
Mm-hmm. But I think heading out of our coverage of the first leg, I think I was a little bit more optimistic. I'm not saying than you, I think than a lot of people, because I was saying...
I can't remember how I felt.
I thought that Son Heung-min coming back in and a combination of Son and Lucas Moura would be a bit more energetic, a bit more electrifying.
Yes.
I think they would cause problems for Ajax.
Yep. Because first leg we thought Fernando Llorente starting up front was too slow. It was all a bit placid. It didn't offer a cutting edge.
And then this weekend with Ryan Bailey, I usually don't do, outside of when we do our specific predictions, we kind of don't ever do the I think this is going to happen. I think this team's going to win. And I really, just with the way Tottenham looked, I forget, I think it was angry and frustrated or something like that. That they just seemed completely out of sorts. And I thought, I don't see how I see them.
Is it because they had a rough weekend against Bournemouth with the 9 men and all that?
But in that game, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, I see.
They looked completely frustrated at all times. They were mad. They were shoving. They were yelling at each other. It just felt like a team that had kind of felt like we've lost it and this is it. And I really didn't see how they got back into this. And that's really how the first half went. It was kind of my fears confirmed of they go 2-0 down. They look like they have no chance. They completely were outplayed.
Yep.
And then it changes at halftime. And I was pretty shocked.
Once again, I feel like this is the third time we've said this in the Champions League. Mauricio Pochettino changed things up, changed the approach. Half-time in this game, it was earlier in the Man City game, and really rescued it for his team. We'll get into the specifics of what he did. Maybe we'll do this chronologically, and we'll get into the specifics of what he did when it makes sense chronologically. Let's talk about Pochettino's starting lineup.
All right.
It was, we think, going back and rewatching, a 4-2-3-1 with Lucas Moura as your centre forward, Dele Alli underneath, Son on the left, Eriksen on the right, Sissoko and Wanyama in defensive midfield. And I think, weirdly, that makes sense.
I think it makes sense to some extent. I really thought we would see a front two almost of Lucas Moura and Son Heung-min.
Like a split two who would run the channels and threaten with pace.
Or even just combine through the middle and it'd be quick combinations that they could hit on the break with Dele Alli kind of patrolling behind, Christian Eriksen spreading balls. All of that made sense to me. So actually I was kind of surprised to see Lucas Moura up there by himself because it felt like Ajax were always going to do that kind of high-pressure, high-intensity system. Yeah. So then you're at best looking for long balls over the top from Lucas Moura from deep, and that's not really going to favor him.
I think Spurs were thinking maybe the way that Ajax stretched the game, that there'd be gaps to just spring Moura with through balls on the floor, kind of. Maybe they were imagining sort of Eriksen to Ali and then a quick through ball and Lucas Moura's in behind or Son's helping out. That made sense to me, but it absolutely did not happen.
No. I mean, and I think...
in the first half.
It was exemplified for me in the final few minutes of the first half that, ball goes out of bounds, it's going to be a throw for Ajax, and I think, Sissoko, bodies somebody, deliberately runs into somebody, and Wanyama's walking away, not even paying attention. And those two...
Not Wanyama's best game.
It looked like both of them were just sort of checked out. And, I said to you at halftime, do you think we see Wanyama get a red card in this one? Because he's just started to look annoyed. He had, the kind of 2-foot almost stamp there at the end of the half, and it just felt like things...
He got a managerial red card.
He did. But that's what I mean, is, it felt like what we saw from Bournemouth, or what we saw against Bournemouth. It felt like sort of frustration boiling over, some stupid challenges, looking a little bit overmatched. And that was kind of the case for the entire first half. And I think it was the aggression from Ajax in how hard they pressed. And then I think the other aspect was we saw, again, the almost sort of suicidal press that we saw from Liverpool against Barcelona. We have got to make a play on the ball no matter what. There's got to be a deflection. You've got to at least put it out for a throw-in if you're Ajax, and that really did work for the entire first half.
It really did. It doesn't hurt to get a goal in the 5th minute.
It does not.
So it's Matthias de Ligt once again scoring with his head from a corner kick. But I think it's really important to note why this corner kick happened, and I think this goes to Spurs' mental state.
This is exactly. Thank you. It's basically it's a shot from Dusan Tadic. It's blocked, or excuse me, it's saved. It's deflected and then saved by Hugo Lloris.
Yeah, Trippier deflects it. Lloris with a wonderful parry save,
And then Danny Rose has at least enough time to put this out for a throw-in, but I think more likely he has time to settle and turn and then kind of dribble into space a little bit.
We double-checked this. There's no one else around him, right? He could have let it run past him, and then he's got the ball in front of him and he's going down the left wing.
And I think it's indicative of how overwhelmed Tottenham felt in those first couple minutes that I think Danny Rose just assumed somebody's going to be pressuring me. I'm just putting this out for a corner.
Or safety first, snuff it out. knock it behind.
And you can tell that he's frustrated with himself because he kind of passes it out of bounds. It goes off the advertisement and comes back towards him. And then in that kind of moment, he looks behind and realizes how much time he had. And then he kicks it again into the crowd. Not like maliciously.
Kaku style?
Yeah, not quite that deliberate, like not quite that trajectory. But definitely a moment of like, oh, I have made a mistake.
Yep.
And then that mistake ends up costing.
Arrested Development style.
Yes. I made a huge mistake. Not that huge because things work out in the end. But for a moment, it seemed pretty big.
All right, so it's Ajax's corner kick. It is Matthias de Ligt scores it. On first viewing, I was definitely of the opinion that Spurs had made a huge error, another huge mistake, by having Kieran Trippier mark Matthias de Ligt because it's just a size mismatch, right?
Yeah.
Trippier's 5'10". I think de Ligt is at least 6 foot and really powerful in the air. So it seemed like an absolute mismatch. We have to give credit where it's due. In the TNT studio, in the BR Live studio, depending how you watched it. It's both, right? It's double branded. They actually did a really good job of breaking down this corner and pointing out the screen that Donny van de Beek puts on Jan Vertonghen, who was the real marker of Matthias de Ligt. They essentially double marked him, like Trippier to block him originally, Vertonghen to actually pick him up later.
And I think Trippier is supposed to basically shove him so that like de Ligt, so that it kind of throws him off a little bit.
And hands all over him,
and
right?
he does that in the beginning, but then the corner doesn't come in like the moment when Trippier gets the shove in.
Yeah.
But what does happen is the referee is right there, so when they kind of reset for a moment, there's definitely a little bit of a like, hey, hands off, because you can see Trippier do the like, oh, I'm not pushing, and then the ball comes in.
And then he's trying to go like nipples to nipples, right?
Yeah,
he's
it doesn't quite
pressed
work.
up against him, And de Ligt just goes one direction, Trippier can't catch him.
In fact, that's the first time we've ever said nipple on this show.
Oh, I know.
Yes. Yeah, and so then Trippier is basically left for dust, left in the dust, or for dust, whatever. And then, Vertonghen is clearly supposed to pick up de Ligt, but he cannot because Donny van de Beek has stepped across. There was some debate in the TNT studio, I'm calling it the TNT studio, as to whether or not this would have been a foul.
That actually sounds like it's loaded with dynamite.
Yes, and it kind of was. I think Tim Howard says this is definitely a foul. Stu Holden disagrees.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I do wonder
if somewhere in the middle.
I think it's like, is that the like midfielder who attacks versus goalkeeper who defends sort of difference?
I think it is that.
Because I would say a thing that also makes it hard to tell is because Van de Beek definitely backs into Vertonghen, and it would be different if he was just trying to like back in and stop Vertonghen from moving. But basically before either one of them can move forward, I think Vertonghen has no idea that this screen is happening, so they get a tangle of legs, they both fall down.
Yeah.
And so there's no way to tell if they were both going to try to make a play on the ball, and I think that's where the referee has to kind of say like, I see why maybe Spurs feel aggrieved, but you can't say, oh no, he was just like tackled off the ball and that let de Ligt be wide open.
Yep.
And that's where I think there's gray area. That's why I would not have called it a penalty. A foul, rather.
And so it's a good sort of set-piece setup from Ajax, right?
It is.
Donny van de Beek did his job.
But here's the thing that you and I haven't talked about at all. I still think, like, forgive me for the harsh language, but like I feel like that's a dumb approach to corners, is like have one person man mark the person, but when the attacker gets beyond him, there's another person waiting. Like,
you've added a layer of confusion that maybe doesn't need to be there. Maybe just Vertonghen marks him to begin with, and just stays with him.
That makes more sense to me because there's a huge scrum in there. It's not as though like, okay, we've got our first wave of defense, and then if he gets by, we've got a second wave. It sort of is like, we've got our first wave of defense, and if the attacker gets by that, hopefully our second wave is still there and hasn't been knocked all around and lost focus.
Was it de Ligt that scores against Spurs in the first leg?
Yeah, I think so.
Or is this a different... it might have been against Real Madrid. I can't remember. It might have been against Real Madrid. There's de Ligt with a header where he's marked by someone, but he uses the scrum as a screen for his marker and goes around the other side and loses him that way. Do you remember that? So maybe Spurs are thinking...
I think that was against Madrid.
It was against Madrid, right? But maybe they're thinking, okay, this is the thing Ajax do. This is the thing that Matthias de Ligt does. Here's our solution to it is... You think you're going to lose the first guy, but we've got a secret second guy who's going to get you.
Yeah.
And they just screened the second guy as well.
Yeah, how'd that work out?
Not so well.
Exactly.
Not so well. Quick note, we don't normally sort of talk about the TV coverage, but I think it is worth highlighting that in the TNT studio, this was good analysis. This is what I want at halftime of soccer games, is pointing out things that I haven't seen. I think we would have caught it on the rewatch because we obsessively rewatch.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed learning it at halftime in the moment.
I think we would have caught it if only because we were both so confused why Trippier is calling for a foul when he clearly isn't fouled.
I'd have watched it 500 times to get the answer.
Now it makes more sense. So that puts Ajax up 1-0, and I do think that it happening so quickly, I think Spurs are a little bit rattled. And it's not to say that then Ajax are all over them and get another one really quickly, but I think it is Spurs sort of shrinking off a little bit, backing off a little bit, because we can't concede another one. We're really scared. This isn't working the way we thought it was going to work. And I think that extends to Ajax again, continuing to apply pressure, continue to get opportunities, and kind of forcing Spurs into long balls for Lucas Moura, who's probably not going to win them against Daley Blind or de Ligt or whomever else is kind of shadowing him.
And does Ajax's second goal start with an attempt to maybe play more in behind? I know it's sort of a low longish ball that doesn't get to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that, and then it's Ajax just being very aggressive to make sure they win the ball back, because I think it's that comes later, the kind of scrap between Tadic and Trippier. But it's basically, I think Daley Blind plays the long ball forward, it kind of comes back around, and they're able to win it back, Ajax, and then they cycle it around. And it's just sort of, again, this is Ajax being very quick and very smart, but it's also kind of out-battling Spurs at the same time. It's not just them being technically precise, it's also them being sort of physical when they need to be.
This goal is it starts with, or at least in the build-up, it's Tadic backing into Kieran Trippier and going with the sort of, I think the back of his head hits Trippier, which like shakes Trippier for a second. And doesn't Tadic just like high-foot it, like knock the ball down the line? Then there's a bit of a mix-up between, because Trippier gets a half tackle in. Then I think he sort of, Wanyama comes over to help, and Wanyama and Trippier bang into each other, and then Ajax are away.
I think, honestly, because of how intense Ajax have been in their press, I think Trippier thinks that is an Ajax player, and that's why he tries to take a touch away and ends up, I think, megging Wanyama, because he doesn't realize that Wanyama's there to help and is his teammate, and then suddenly the two kind of smack into each other, but the ball's been played, and Ajax are able to break very quickly.
Confusion reigns supreme.
Yeah, Donny van de Beek, I think, picks it up, drives in, plays it wide to Dusan Tadic. Tadic centers it for Hakim Ziyech, who has a great shot, far side netting, lovely taken.
He's also tragically unmarked from a Spurs perspective. I think everyone's kind of just panicking a little bit here.
I mean, yes, that is definitely true. I hesitate to say that because we've kind of harped on him already, but I think another huge deficiency for Tottenham in this game was Victor Wanyama. He was routinely a problem.
He was ball chasing, wasn't he, in this goal?
And in this goal, he basically, after the collision with Trippier, he's able to kind of get back into defensive shape. He hustles back, but he's completely focused on the ball the entire time. And Ziyech basically runs past him, and only when Ziyech is about to shoot, I think, does he realize, ooh, that's the guy that I should probably be marking.
It's a lovely strike from Ziyech, right? Left-footed, across his own body, bending away from Lloris into the far corner. 2-0, 10 minutes before halftime.
Yeah. I mean, and it could have been worse. I think there were many other good chances for Ajax they weren't able to take cleanly. I think Spurs did an okay job to kind of circle the wagons.
Make it to halftime?
Make it to halftime, because it really was like we saw Son Heung-min like on the right, on the left, come central, and none of those little adjustments were really working. So it definitely meant
he kept getting stuck, right? He would dribble at people, and like Mazraoui or Blind or Tagliafico would just be nope. Get in the way, stick him, and away we go.
And I think if this game ends up differently, if Ajax are able to hold on, or like nothing changes in the second half, then I think it's the way it works. We kind of look at this as, should Pochettino have made a change sooner? Because like things clearly weren't working. Trippier looked like he had a bit of an injury. Wanyama appeared to have an injury. He was limping at the end of the game in the celebrations. And I wonder, like, should they have made a change in the 30th minute or something like that so that the second goal doesn't happen?
Yep.
Instead, he kind of sticks with it, makes a few little adjustments, and then holds on until halftime, albeit 2-0 down.
Yep.
And that's when I have to believe he gives the most motivational speech in a locker room since like any given Sunday.
I'd like to know what it was.
Yeah.
But there's also a tactical switch up, which we'll get to in a minute. I honestly think, in terms of adjusting mid-game to solve the problems that he sees, Mauricio Pochettino is a tactical genius.
Yes.
If he was in the insurance game, he would be...
I was wondering if you're going to link it.
A policy genius. Today's show is sponsored by Policy Genius.
It's spring. It certainly is. There's many, many showers happening in Richmond. That usually is indicative of spring. The time of year when seeds grow into flowers and you grow up, financially at least. Your family needs protection if something happens to you, and that means you need life insurance.
Policy Genius has a way to get that financial security for you without the growing pains. I've been to their website, policygenius.com, and I understand what they're talking about.
What are they talking about, Mr. Grove?
They are talking about sort of walking you through it. It's a really easy way to buy life insurance online. First of all, here's what I love. You go to policygenius.com, and once you get started, they ask, do you want us to walk you through this like a child, which some people do appreciate on the internet, or would you rather do it yourself? And I really love the two-track approach. You're either going to get a lot of help and a lot of like live chat help and all that, or we'll leave you to it. We trust you to fill it in yourself. And yeah, those are two different tracks that I obviously lean more towards the latter. I like to be left alone on the internet, but it's good that the other option is there.
I would say it's definitely good that the other option is there, because I am the opposite. I would much rather, when it comes to life insurance, I would rather make sure that I'm doing it right and filling in the blanks the way they need to be filled in.
Yep.
So it doesn't end up with them saying, like, nope, nothing for you. And I would say this was probably a good time for them to be an advertiser on the show, because we had no interest in this game. Neither one of us is rooting, like we're not fans of Ajax, we're not fans of Tottenham.
I was kind of happy either way. Either an English team in the Champions League final and we guarantee an English winner, or this exciting Ajax team in the final. It's all good either way.
But I was pretty nervous. I feel like if you took my blood pressure or my my heart rate, they were going to be pretty elevated. And maybe it's you want the peace of mind knowing that you've got the life insurance policy there just in case soccer eventually kills one of us.
So here's how it works. After they've given you the 2-track option, you put in your information, your age, your height, your weight, that kind of stuff. Then you say how much coverage you're looking for in terms of how much payout you want for your life insurance. Then they show you some rates of like how much this will cost you monthly. You choose the rate that you're willing to pay, and then it gives you all the options. So Policy Genius does not provide life insurance. They're sort of like an aggregator of all the best life insurance policies, so you can compare the quotes from the top insurers to find your best price all in one place.
Yeah, and it's not just simplifying life insurance. They also make it easy to compare and buy home insurance, auto insurance, and disability insurance. I do hope there's a feature that if you deny their help in the guided process and then you end up needing it and you go back, then there is that sort of patronizing you're back, huh? So you did need help after all.
I really hope that that's true. So next time you stop to smell the roses because it's spring, pull out your phone or get on your laptop and head to policygenius.com.
Policy Genius, spring is here. Kick it off by nipping life insurance in the bud.
Lovely. Thank you, Policy Genius, for sponsoring today's show.
And let's hope Mauricio Pochettino did not stop and smell the rose, because I have to believe 45 minutes of sprinting around from Danny Rose, he probably didn't smell terrific.
At halftime, whether he smelled Danny Rose or not, he did take the measure of his team and decide this needs to change. And this is the big tactical change we're talking about.
He went eeny, meeny, miny, Victor Wanyama.
Correct choice, right? I know we're harping on him, but he really did have a bad game. Lots of giving the ball away. The sort of defensive midfielding he was doing was not good. He was kind of running all over the place and adding to the confusion. Ajax were giving him the runaround. It was the correct choice to take Victor Wanyama out and bring in Fernando Llorente. Oof. Here he comes. But he didn't play defensive midfield. What they did, they put Llorente as the centre forward and essentially changed the shape to more of a 4-3-3, right? So it became Llorente as the centre forward, Son on the left, Lucas Moura on the right, and then a sort of rotating midfield of Sissoko, Eriksen, Dele Alli. Mostly Sissoko stayed home and did Victor Wanyama's job much, much better than Victor Wanyama has ever done it in his life.
He did, yes, because he...
I take that back. There were a few years ago when Wanyama was effective.
Yeah, sure. But in these past couple of games, definitely Sissoko's the one you want there. And it's sort of similar between Sissoko and Llorente, that they're both very strong. They're both kind of good in holding their position. And then I think you saw a lot of Sissoko winning the ball and then either driving forward or playing it long to Llorente, who then brings it down. And I think that connection was very important because now, if you're Tottenham and you win that ball back, you can, at worst, play it long, play it central, and know that Llorente is basically going to be able to outwork Daley Blind, who usually was matched up against, or Matthias de Ligt. And at the very least, he's going to be...
What do you mean by outwork?
That I think basically the positioning he takes, he does a very smart thing. I think he only gets called on it once, but he sort of takes up a natural position, but routinely it's a yard further than he needs to be, or a yard closer than he needs to be, and then he kind of backs up and backs up and backs up, and I think the defenders...
The beeping noises he does.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a little obvious, but maybe. But I think the defender is so concerned about aggressively losing that challenge or being called for a foul for a shove in the back that they back off a little bit, and that's because I was really confused. Why is Llorente able to get a touch to everything? Why is he never beaten in the air? Why doesn't anyone ever step in front? Part of that is because Ajax never step anybody in front, which I think was a problem that they never really rectified. There was no one there to kind of scoop up that ball when Llorente wasn't able to control it completely. But I think it's also that because he's backing up and kind of bodying a little bit, he's able to dictate the way that kind of battle is going to go.
Yep, because the defender, if you've never been in this situation, if you're facing a really big forward, and I've been in this situation, there are some forwards who are so big and so good at using their body, you cannot get around them, right? If Daley Blind or Matthias de Ligt had tried to go round the left and try and get a foot around in front of Llorente, he's going to adjust his body, use essentially his butt and his back to just block your progress. So he is always going to be the one that is receiving the ball coming into him, and you are not able to get in front of him. And then the massive strength of Fernando Llorente is his touch in those situations is excellent. Whether it's a headed flick on, which is often on target, or he uses the chest and then a quick touch away. He's very good at either bringing it down or quickly laying it off, or one then the other. Suddenly Spurs have an option. Even when Ajax are pressing, they have this option. They just go long to Llorente, and they know that rather than Son being wide left and Moura being wide right and Ali running around in midfield, they can almost cluster around him and know it's not going to be a lucky knockdown. He's going to essentially bring it down and pass it to them at the top of the area. And that's terrifying if you're Ajax.
But I would say, but even like contrast that with the first half when if it's in a 4-2-3-1 with Mora being the sole one up top, he's not going to be able to do that. He's not. He doesn't have that physicality. So if you look long for Lucas Moura, it's either going to be maybe he gets a touch and takes it like down to the channel, or more often than not, he kind of battles and then you lose that ball. And so if you're a Tottenham midfielder, you're not going to go flying up the field. You're not going to be trying to counter-press as quickly as you can or get up there to support because there's a decent chance that ball is coming right back at you, and now you're caught out. When it's Fernando Llorente, he can bring that ball down, he can slow it up, and because now, he's got Mora and Son on either side of him, they're there to collect that ball, and now if you're Christian Eriksen or Dele Alli, or Danny Rose, Kieran Trippier, you feel a little bit more confident charging forward because chances are you're going to be able to retain possession a little bit better.
My guess as well is, Son and Mora, they were on the wing sometimes, but them coming inside to like get near to Llorente, open space for Trippier down the right and Danny Rose down the left. I definitely think I saw them way more advanced in the second half than the first half.
Yes, I agree with that. And that's where it goes back to, for me, Mauricio Pochettino being an incredible in-game manager. Because we talked about this with Liverpool from start to finish yesterday, that they believed. I tend to not enjoy they just wanted it more, they believed in themselves. But I think
it's part of the story. It's not the whole story, but it's a huge part of the story.
It's a huge part of the story because if you're Tottenham and you come out and Pochettino has tried to get you to embrace, look, we're going to press more, we're going to be more aggressive, we're going to get bodies forward, and say 8 of the 10 outfield players are doing that, you're still in a lot of trouble because you have 2 people who are sort of whatever, it's not really going to come off. And from kickoff, Llorente is charging forward. He's trying to cut off an angle. Spurs basically force Ajax long in a way that they had not in the first half.
Then they force Onana into a sort of a bad clearance.
Yep, and they win the ball back. They end up getting a throw in relatively deep in Ajax territory, and that's the first minute of the second half.
Isn't that stuff key? I know this from our experience, that if you give a tactical talk at half-time, if you then see that thing executed within the first 10 seconds, everybody's like, oh, the plan works, let's do the plan.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's right there. It's the pressing ends up forcing Ajax into giving the ball away, and then it's the one where, I think a minute later, there's a ball into Llorente that he brings down, and then he does the little, scoop pass where he tries to lift it over the top, and it's a really good ball. It ends up getting cut out for a corner for Tottenham.
Yes.
And so right there in the first 2 minutes of the second half,
genius, right?
You see, things are very different. Maybe some more aggressiveness and Fernando Llorente are going to make a big difference, and they definitely do.
And here's the fun thing I want to say about Llorente before we move on to Spurs' 3 goals. They really played to his strengths in a way that they didn't in the first half of the first leg, right? Don't ask Llorente to receive the ball and run at people because he can't do it. Don't ask Llorente to sort of don't ask Llorente to do anything where it's like him with the goal in front of him and he needs to beat a couple people. But ask him to play back to goal and build everything else around that, and he's gold.
Yep. I mean, and for the most part, I would agree with that. I mean, there was a few headers we weren't sure what.
Oh yeah, ask him to attack a header on a corner kick, and he's going to put it over the bar. He is. He did it at least 3 times in this game.
It did feel that way a little bit.
He landed it on the roof of the net a lot. He's much better with his hips than with his head.
But I think, I promise this isn't just. I don't think this is just revisionist history. But in those first couple minutes of the second half. Yeah, exactly. But in this case, this is Total Soccer Show, but I don't think I'm being revisionist here. When I saw those opening moments and I thought, this is different. This is much more aggressive from Tottenham and it looks much better. And by contrast, Ajax looked much, much worse. They were not nearly as aggressive in their press. The commentators kept putting that on Kasper Dolberg, but I think it was sort of it was from the backline all the way through that in ways that they had almost suffocated Tottenham in the first half. I do think Tottenham being a bit more aggressive, sending numbers forward, made that harder for Ajax, but they definitely backed off a little bit more, and then that increased throughout the second half. So by the end, they're just backing off. They're just dropping numbers behind the ball.
Here's the problem I see with Ajax is they were backing off, but it was always in a scrambling kind of way. They never said,
100%.
Okay, we're 3 goals to the good. All we've got to do is see this out. Maybe we don't play this 4-3-3 where we try and press. Maybe we're conservative for 45 minutes. Maybe we play like a 4-5-1 or even more defensive. Maybe we don't pressure beyond the halfway line. They probably would have seen this game out, right? If they'd taken that approach. And I think a huge part of the problem is that they kept going for it. It's sort of live by the sword, die by the sword, right? Everyone loves this Ajax team because they're so gung-ho and they go at Juventus and Real Madrid and they don't care who they're playing, they just go at them. And I think in the end, that's what did them in. And here's my huge evidence for this. The first goal that Lucas Moura scores in the, 54th minute, I believe this is the thing where Ajax have a free kick. And they send both centre-backs forward to attack it in the 54th minute of a game you're already winning 3-0. I know this is my personal sort of bugbear I have with professional teams. I don't think you need to send both your centre-backs forward when you're 3-0 up. Settle down, Ajax.
don't always agree with you on that one. I think there are reasons to do it in certain occasions. This time I 100% agree. And it's not just because it ends up being a Tottenham goal, but it's because what Matthias de Ligt clearly is for that Ajax defense. He organizes everything. He is yelling. He is telling people where to go, what to do, when to do it. Even in this free kick, he kind of holds off going forward and finally gets the attention of Frankie de Jong and has Frankie de Jong drop in.
Yes.
Then de Ligt goes forward.
Yeah.
And so on the one hand, you could say like, oh.
So what's Daily Blind doing up there?
That's a great
Little
question
Daily
as well.
Blind. What are you doing up there?
But so on the one hand, you could say like, okay, but that's the Ligt. Like he is organizing. He kept somebody back. But in reality, it's then people who aren't like your best defenders who are trying to put out a fire as it's like developing really quickly and don't quite have the tools to do so.
I actually have the names. When this Mora goal eventually happens, it is De Jong, who is a decent defender, Mazraoui, and Shona. Not bad defenders, but not your best defenders. Not your elite defenders.
But like before we even get to that, I heard it. Daryl's laughing so hard at his puns. Oh my goodness gracious. For me, though, it's like, again, you have this free kick for Ajax. It's an Ajax attacking opportunity. Ball played in, and de Ligt kind of wins it. Like, I think he and Danny Rose both go for it at the same time. And it
just
spills
pops
loose.
Right?
And it's Son working so hard off the ball to kind of, like, chase down this loose chance that I think in the first half, he's not doing that. He was fairly quiet in the first half. And I think Ajax are able to kind of collect that at the top of the box, move it around, and now, once again, they've reestablished dominance near the top of the box. In this case, Son chases it down. It kind of spills out wide. Eventually, Danny Rose is there. And then I think you see sort of damage control. De Ligt comes flying out, as does Daley Blind. They both try to make a play. Danny Rose, to his credit, very calm, just has a little boop pass. Megs de Ligt. But now, this is the problem with pressing like that, is that you've taken your two best defenders very much out of the equation because they've both been beaten by that one little pass from Danny Rose.
Both on the right wing. They're both on the right wing.
Not great. Yeah.
And then Danny Rose hits a really nice ball, I think, a nice-ish ball into midfield.
For Lucas Moura.
Moura. And maybe Tagliafico would have got there, but Lucas Moura, we've seen him do this against Man City as well. He is very good at being first to the ball, getting a foot to it, and then taking it in stride and advancing. And suddenly, if you're defending, you're in all kinds of trouble, and double that if both your centre-backs are up on the right wing.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's this long ball into Lucas Moura. Tagliafico tries to make the play, and I do think this is also where Ajax sort of start to drop off a little bit more and aren't quite as live by the sword, die by the sword as they had been, because they get beaten for being that aggressive. Tagliafico tries to make a play, but Lucas Moura is there. He plays in Dele Alli. Then it's an over pursuit. Dele Alli does the kind of the chop cut back. I think for himself.
Big cut for himself.
Yeah, but Lucas Moura is there to kind of take it off, drive through, passes into the net.
Very selfish, but it's 100% the correct decision.
But it's like a series of overcommitments. It is definitely, but it's a series of overcommitments from Ajax that just keep opening up pockets of space and opportunities, and Spurs exploit that. And suddenly, there's belief there, because Spurs have pulled one back very early in the second half.
9 minutes after the big change. It's talking about like believing in the plan. You get a goal after 9 minutes, you're sort of, oh yeah, we can do this again. A few minutes later, they get another one.
And even right before that, there was the Dele Alli chance at like the far post. He shoots it. Onana has a big save. But again, right there, you start to see like, ooh, suddenly like Tottenham are holding the ball and then playing it wide to an advancing runner who's now wide open and getting shots or getting crosses off. Things are changing. And then you've already said, things change dramatically when Lucas Moura gets a second.
All right, Tyler, help me out. So what I remember from this second Lucas Moura goal in the 59th minute is the chaos where sort of Onana makes a save and then a cool backhanded save, but then he gets in a tangle with Shona.
Yeah.
And then Lucas Moura finds the gap and scores. How do we get to that situation? What's the build up to this goal? I'm genuinely asking, I can't remember.
As I recall, it's basically, I believe, like Spurs, I think, have just possession, but it's what we've been talking about, where Spurs start to move the ball a little bit more freely, but less frenetically. And I think that it basically the two switch sides, and it becomes Spurs kind of moving the ball with a lot of confidence, and Ajax starting to be reactive and panicky. And I say that because this one, I think, like Spurs get the ball into the box, it gets partially cleared, and the Ajax line really aggressively step forward, but in so doing, don't notice that there are 2 and 3 wide open Spurs players, including
Kieran Trippier. Right? On the right, this is what happens.
Sissoko is wide open at the top of the box. I believe like Dele Alli has a good amount of space. You've got Danny Rose is wide open on the left. And so I think this is Ajax just sort of starting to be reactive. And so they all step, but are not aware that Kieran Trippier is wide open, can make that run. And it's a diagonal ball played through. And now,
I think Son gives it to him, right?
Yeah. Now not only have they kind of stepped and been aggressive but not marked a player, but because they haven't marked this wide open player, now the offside line is broken. And so the Ajax
Trippier's in behind.
So they're so focused on just getting back into defensive shape as quickly as they can. that they basically are not paying attention to who's where, and that's why Fernando Llorente is wide open and onside when this ball comes in.
Yeah, so Trippier squares it to Llorente, and he gets maybe one bite at this. Good save from Onana. Not great finishing for Llorente. Again, this isn't his strong suit. He's good at back to goal, hold it up.
But what center forward is good at finishing? Ish. Yes, but and then it's a credit to Onana because Onana gets a diving save to it, and then I think
point blank, it's good stuff.
And then he ends up like while he's still saving it / kind of getting up, he uses his other hand to knock it away a little bit more.
It's a backhand save. I've not seen that before. It's excellent.
It is. What happens next is less excellent. And you and I watched this a bunch. I'm still not sure where I land. But basically, the ball, because it's kind of a dramatic save off the line, the ball is loose inside the 6-yard box. And it's Lasse Schöne who I think reacts to it, has the ball, and I think is about to make a play on it, try to get it clear, which I think is what he has to do. But I also understand why Onana feels like, I can collect that ball. It's a loose ball, and that'll settle things down. The problem is that there's really no communication. I don't think there's really time for it because I think Onana stands up, sees the ball open, or sees the ball in the 6-yard box and just tries to dive to it. Like Schöne doesn't really know what's happening. So basically Onana gets a hand to it, but he gets a hand to it and kind of pulls it into the feet of Schöne, and that's why it stays loose.
It pops loose and Schöne gets tripped over because it's essentially a tackle, like a rugby tackle or a football tackle on Schöne. Here's what I think you and I were sort of trying to decide whose fault it is. Is it Onana's fault? Is it Schöne's fault? I think in the end, it's just a mess, right? It's not like one person is to blame. It's just kind of an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, and I think what we kind of landed on is that really Llorente should have scored because he's wide open. Yeah. And there are already so many Ajax defensive deficiencies there that should have been in a goal. And then everything after that is sort of Ajax getting lucky and lucky and lucky and then unlucky. Because I do think it's a little bit of luck from Lucas Moura, the way he's able to get this shot off in the first place.
I wouldn't have agreed after first watch. Second, third, fourth watch, he never really looks up. He just looks down at the ball and makes sure he's got control and can turn, gets a shot away. Doesn't he nutmeg Frankie de Jong?
With the shot.
With the shot, but there's no intention there, right? It's just luck.
I don't think so, but I should say it's not necessarily getting the shot off, it's how the shot goes in, because it is, it megs Frankie de Jong. It goes on the other side of Matthias de Ligt, who's kind of standing on the line but can't get his body to it. It goes in between de Ligt and the post. And so that is definitely fortunate for Lucas Moura. Maybe predatory instinct, maybe just knowing where he is.
I think just repetition of knowing when I receive this ball here, I know the angles of where to strike it, so I can do it literally without looking.
True.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger thing for me is that, but what is definitely intentional and very skillful is that Moura gets this ball with his back to goal and with a lot of Ajax players around him, and he takes, I'd say, a good 4 touches before he gets that shot off.
He shakes himself loose, right?
He just really tightly controls, and I think is aware that the Ajax players don't want to overcommit, don't want to barge into him, because it is a chaotic moment. That lends itself to making a chaotic play, which lends itself to conceding a penalty. So I think he kind of navigates that expertly, takes a few little touches, gets a little bit of separation, is then able to kind of turn and get that shot off when I think Ajax players did not expect it to come.
Ooh, okay, so 2-2 on the night. Ajax still lead 3-2 on aggregate. Ten Hag starts making some changes, right? The 2 changes are, they come like a few minutes apart, but I think we might as well talk about them as a piece, right? Because this is his big change. Lasse Schöne is off. And I think it's really important that Schöne comes off because we didn't mention this on the first Lucas Moura goal.
It's Schöne who's chasing down Dele Alli.
And not...
Oh, no, he's tracking Lucas Moura, my mistake.
Tracking Lucas Moura and trying his very, 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 very best. He just is not fast enough. And so I think, Schöne comes out, Veltman comes in, Veltman goes to right back, and Mazraoui goes to central midfield and essentially replaces Lasse Schöne with basically someone who can cover ground faster, right? I think that's Ten Hag's play. It's not a bad idea. I think it's the correct idea.
I think it's the correct idea, but I think it still is not enough in the moment because I do think at this point, this is where Ajax's youth, again, maybe this is a cliche, but I'm fine with it. Their youth works against them a little bit because now it's gone from we're coasting into the Champions League final, we've slain all these giants, and now here's another one that we're going to kind of put to the sword. But then when you get hit and hit again in very quick succession, how do you respond to that? And you need a person to step up and be that kind of leader. You would expect it to be Daley Blind, I would say.
Yeah.
But it didn't
he's a much experienced guy there, I think.
It didn't feel like there was anybody who really calmed things down, told everybody to settle. I saw Christian Eriksen and Dele Alli doing a lot of that for Spurs in the first half of kicking the ball away on a free kick so it didn't get taken quickly and then turning around and being like, hey, everybody just settle down.
Worth crediting, Dele Alli is still a young man.
He is.
But he's sort of an old pro.
Yeah. And I do kind of wonder if Ajax is inexperienced there. They feel those nerves. The crowd is doing everything it can to kind of pick them back up. But I think once you've been hit and suddenly it's like, oh no, one more does it. And I think you kind of give all the momentum to Tottenham, which they have. Even this change, Tottenham continue to look very threatening, continue to have opportunities. And so it's no surprise to me that 7 minutes later they make another change.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Kasper Dolberg, the youngish Danish centre-forward, comes off. It's worth noting as well, he was only starting because David Neres, there was a late decision on him. Neres wasn't fit to go, so Kasper Dolberg gets to start centre-forward. Dolberg comes off, Danny Sinkgraven comes on, and then Dusan Tadic is moved back to his more, it's not actually his position, but it's been his position this season as a weird false nine type guy, right? Yeah. So that's the change.
And I want to say
this works.
It does. I feel bad for Kasper Dolberg because he essentially is doing the Fernando Llorente role from the first leg. That, especially in the second half, they're just kind of pinging balls into him, hoping he can do something with it, and then expecting him to sort of chase every loose ball down. Yeah. But because Ajax are dropping off, and now kind of playing from deep, a lot more long balls, a lot more goal kicks taken long, he doesn't really have the support. So even when he does, there's a few moments when he does kind of win the ball or hold it up for a second, and then he's got players all over him, and none of whom are Ajax players.
The one time he does it well, he wins that free kick, but that's when they send the centre-backs forward and concede the goal.
There you go. So I do think
official Kasper Dolberg is cursed.
Yes. So I do think that this is a smart change from Ajax, and I think to kind of go back to a little bit more standard positions for a few of their key players like Dusan Tadic.
I think Graven looked good. I hadn't seen much of him before. I was quite impressed with him. I think he's another Ajax youngster. Yeah.
Yep. I would say, though, that it does come down Spurs being able to get this final goal, which they do.
Yep.
There are moments leading up to it where, again, I think there's inexperience from Ajax playing a big part. And again, it's veteran players who still look inexperienced to me. It's Dusan Tadic on the short corner. Clearly, they're trying to kill time in the 80-something minute, and he gets the short ball played to him, tries to hold it up, and immediately controls it out of bounds.
He does something a bit too freestyle-y, loses control, and the ball pops loose, right? He also has that wild shot.
That's the other one where,
after they'd had possession.
Frankie de Jong, that's in the 93rd minute, I think, where, it's a great shot from Ziyech. It's saved by Lloris, and then the follow-up shot from Tadic, he kind of cuts inside, shoots wide, and you can see Frankie de Jong, before the ball's really even totally out of bounds, screaming at him go to the corner flag, go to the corner flag. What are you doing? And
Tadic is not a young guy, right? He's playing the Premier League for Southampton. Yeah. I think he's around 30, maybe over 30.
And it's just I know it sounds silly, but if you had told me at halftime that the two teams just switched jerseys, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense, because it's also just Tottenham out fighting Ajax for every single ball in these final few minutes. That every time it seems like Ajax are about to get the ball clear, there's a Tottenham player just gets a foot to it, or just gets a block to it, or just puts them under enough pressure that instead of being all the way back to the corner flag, it's a throw in at midfield, or a throw in 30 yards from goal, or possession conceded cheaply, or possession given back to the center backs. And it just feels like it really did start to feel like an inevitable thing, Tottenham finally finding a way to get a goal.
Erik ten Hag had one more substitution that I'm sure made sense to him, but absolutely does not pay off.
Nope.
He brings on another centre-back.
Lisandro Magallan.
Thank you for looking that up. Who does he come on for?
He comes on for Donny van de Beek.
Donny van de Beek. So he takes out the attacking midfielder, brings in a centre-back, and pushes Daley Blind up into sort of defensive midfield, right? So now it is...
Lisandro Magallan.
Alongside Mateus de Ligt. That's your new centre-back.
He's Argentinian. I'm going to guess it's Magallan.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I would argue you don't change your centre-back pairing in the final few minutes of the game, because you've got the established relationship, you've got the established rhythm of the game, you know sort of roughly what you're dealing with. And it kind of messes
And
it
also,
up
I believe the commentators told us heading into this one that Magallan had played 5 times for Ajax. So it's not even but he and De Ligt have tons of experience together. Daley Blind can definitely play as a holding midfielder, so we'll put him up there. Everybody kind of knows what's being asked of them.
Yeah.
Instead, it's
This isn't like when Juve used to sub in Basali and everyone knows, it's not Chiellini and Bonucci, but, we all know
it
Basali.
works. Yeah, exactly. And so it's Daley Blind. Again, he's still kind of drifting around. I think he doesn't quite know what necessarily he's supposed to do. And I think... hindsight 2020 and everything, but I feel like the obvious solution here is stand in front of Fernando Llorente, and now he's got somebody on his back and somebody in front of him, and he can't bring that ball down. He can't control it.
You mentioned this earlier. Shouldn't this have been the solution for the entire second half for Ajax?
Yes.
I love an in front behind on throw-ins when we do it. You have one guy marking like they were. Usually De Ligt or Blind is behind Fernando Llorente. Spurs try to play the ball into Fernando Llorente, and as we talked about before, you can't get around him, so you're almost conceding that he's going to at least get a touch and try and lay it off. But if you have someone just stand on his toes or 2 yards ahead of him, you block off that ball coming in.
Yeah. And you also give
You sacrifice a player, but it works.
You sacrifice a player, but you also give peace of mind to your other players, because in the 96th minute when Lucas Moura scores his third, the game winner, I do love that it's like Spurs are they get one more chance. And it was like, ooh, like they're going to try to move it around. And Sissoko was just like, no, and bangs it long for Llorente. And it's De Ligt.
Great decision-making from Sissoko all second half that puts Victor Wanyama to shame. Like, his passes were connecting. He was taking people on occasionally and opening up some space. And then this decision to just bang it forward, but into Llorente, it was aimed, right? It was like kind of like a 9-iron type thing. It was the perfect decision from Sissoko.
It definitely is, because he's got Matthias de Ligt on his back, and I think de Ligt is so nervous about getting beaten. He doesn't want to like let Llorente bring it down calmly and lay it off, anything like that. So de Ligt is desperate to make a play on the ball. If Daley Blind is standing in front of Llorente, you don't have that level of desperation because there's someone there to front it. It makes it that much harder. At best, Llorente is probably going to pop it up in the air for a header. But because De Ligt tries to make a play, we watched this a whole bunch of times because we thought, what a great outside of the foot layoff from Llorente. Nope, it comes off of De Ligt.
It was a great outside of the foot layoff from De Ligt. It's almost like... you know, like in, say, Game of Thrones or other fantasy stuff, you have a prophecy and someone tries to stop the prophecy from happening and in so doing fulfills the prophecy.
Yep.
I think there was the prophecy of the Fernando Llorente layoff for the Spurs game winner, and De Ligt tried to stop that happening, and he made it happen.
Yeah. I mean, he did, but then it's also like, it's not just, it's like at the same moment that he is being overly aggressive and trying to make some sort of a play on the ball, he still has teammates around him, like Maguire, who's subbed on, who's dropping off a little bit. And so when that ball then goes off De Ligt and to Dele Alli, Maguire is suddenly in the wrong place. He tries to close that gap, and he slips because he is not being aggressive and stepping out either. So again, you have Ajax of two minds in that moment, and that's where they get punished because now Dele Alli is able to control play in for Lucas Moura, and it's a great, calm finish from Lucas Moura.
I can't prove this because you can't prove a counterfactual. But if Daley Blind had just stayed alongside De Ligt instead of bringing Maguire in, I don't think Daley Blind falls over. I think there's an element to having only recently entered the game that plays a role in Maguire slipping,
I agree,
falling over, and essentially costing Ajax the game.
Yeah, I mean, lots of other parts to it, but yes, that's a huge part of it. And I think you're absolutely right. And if nothing else, you put Maguire in there as the kind of roaming around, win everything in the air, and you let Daley Blind stay where he was. That makes sense to me too.
Yes.
But
they should have been front behind with De Ligt and Maguire.
Yeah, that would have made plenty of sense to me. But instead, that's not what they go for, which Tottenham fans will be more than happy to take advantage of, and they were. And so too was Lucas Moura.
Oh, does Dele Alli have a nice little outside of the foot pass to get Lucas Moura through?
He sure does.
Then Lucas Moura's he makes a fast decision to just go that low corner again. Right? Very good at the low finish, Lucas Moura.
Very good at the low finish, and just an amazing second half display from Tottenham. Like, I cannot stress that the first half is exactly what I thought Tottenham were going to be.
Yeah.
Sort of slow, sort of dispirited, not quite performing together. And again, I do not know what Mauricio Pochettino said at halftime to get that belief back. I don't know if maybe...
Aim the ball at Fernando Llorente.
Maybe that was it. And also Victor Wanyama's gone, and there was a silent series of fist pumps around the room. But
I'm sure
whatever
he's very
it was,
popular in the dressing room.
that team came out. It was a night and day difference. And that difference for Tottenham, I think Ajax really lost all the momentum and just started to panic and back off, and Tottenham were able to benefit.
So unless you have anything else, sort of any other analysis of this game, it's worth noting that the Champions League final in Madrid, it's at Atletico Stadium, right, this year, June 1st, is going to be Liverpool versus Spurs. Who would have guessed that at the start of the season?
Not many people.
No. Liverpool back-to-back.
Who would have guessed that when Spurs were almost knocked out in the group stage?
Yeah.
They get that result against Barcelona, they're able to go through. I mean, it's been a crazy couple days for the Champions League.
It certainly has been. And then tomorrow, Thursday, it's worth keeping an eye on the Europa League. We could end up with an Arsenal-Chelsea Europa League final.
Remember all those think pieces years ago about how like our English clubs struggling to compete in Europe and does the Premier League need to be better? And now we potentially have... Now that we said that, though, they're both going to lose dramatically, and then there will be no English clubs in the Europa League, and then we'll have the old narrative of should English clubs be taking the Europa League more seriously.
And we'll do these calculations later, but if it is the Arsenal-Chelsea Europa League final, and it definitely is a Spurs-Liverpool Champions League final, that thing with like the fifth Champions League spot and who misses out, it's going to get slightly complicated. Yeah. We'll have to do a whole show explaining that.
Because, so say Chelsea...
Oh, you're going to try it now? You're a brave man.
I mean, I don't know how this would work exactly, but it's basically if Chelsea and Arsenal got past Tottenham, so regular season ended with Tottenham finished 5th.
Yeah.
But then Chelsea won Europa League, I believe, and Tottenham won the Champions League. That bumps out Arsenal, I think.
I'm not willing to commit to anything without doing some research.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have to see.
You can have 5 teams from any one nation in the Champions League if one of them has just won the Champions League or the Europa League.
Yeah.
You can't have 6. So essentially, if it's 2 teams that finish outside the top 6 that win the Champions League and the Europa League, right? Say Arsenal and Spurs win, but they finish 5th and 6th.
Yeah.
Which I don't think can happen because Man United can't get in there, right?
I don't think so.
So someone's missing out as well.
Yeah, someone's missing out. We'll put it that way.
It's Man United, right?
Oh,
Man
it's
United are
definitely
missing
Man
out.
United,
So maybe just the top 5 all get to go.
That could very well happen.
This is why we should have researched this before having this
whatever.
conversation.
Who cares?
Okay, well, we're much better informed about hair loss products than we are about the Champions League places in England.
Mm-hmm. I think I got it, though.
Oh, no.
You ready?
No, I'm not, but go for it.
All right. I think if Spurs finished like 3rd or 4th, basically it's if Arsenal finished, or if Chelsea finished ahead of Arsenal, Arsenal win Europa League, Spurs win the Champions League, I think that necessitates Arsenal getting in, much to the chagrin of Chelsea. But either way, it doesn't really matter because we'll know what happens when both of those games are played.
Yes, we will.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But thanks for playing.
My pleasure. On to today's sponsor, Hims. Hims is a wellness brand for men that we very much appreciate and are aware that some of the players on the field, as we've said previously, but we'll say again, some of the players on the field tonight could have used their services.
I mean, one of them got a hat-trick. 66% of men, including Lucas Moura, start to lose their hair by age 35. Once you've noticed thinning hair, it can be too late. So if that hairline is slowly moving backwards, then maybe you should look into Hims. It's a one-stop shop for hair loss, also skincare and sexual wellness for men.
Because remember, the best way to prevent hair loss is by doing something about it. That makes sense while you still can. That also makes sense while you still have hair for a 3rd time. That makes sense.
But when you decide to do something about it, don't go to a gas station and buy those weird things.
That would be a very weird, logical decision making of I need to do something about my hair loss. Go to the gas station. That doesn't quite follow.
But I think the thing is that you're pumping gas and maybe you just see some weird hair loss quote-unquote solution and you're like, oh, I'm sure that will work. Don't get tempted into that. Go with something that is medically proven, something like Hims.
I would even argue that Hims is easier than going to the gas station because you don't have to go anywhere. You can do it from your phone, from your iPad, from your computer.
Yes.
It's basically they connect you with real doctors online. It saves you hours and it's completely confidential and discreet, so you don't even have to have the gas station clerk looking at you like, yeah, I guess you do need this. You don't even have to worry about that. It's all online. Answer a few quick questions.
Get out of my face, gas station clerk.
There we go. Answer a few quick questions. A doctor will review, and if they determine it's right for you, can prescribe you medication to treat hair loss that is shipped directly to your door.
So if you want to order now, listeners can get started with the Hims Complete Hair Kit for just $5 today, right now, while supplies last and subject to the doctor's approval. See the website for full details and safety information. This could cost hundreds if you went to the doctor or a pharmacy somewhere else. It would cost about $3 if you went to the gas station one, but it definitely won't work.
So thank you very much to Hims for sponsoring today's episode of The Total Soccer Show. One more time, go to forhims.com/total soccer. That's forhims.com/total soccer, forhims.com/total soccer.
You did it 3 times.
There we go.
Like Beetlejuice.
Congratulations. Forhims will show up if you say it 3 times. Congratulations to Tottenham. I'm sure their fans will still be celebrating and rewatching that one over and over and over again.
Maybe there'll be a DVD.
There probably will be. But if you
it would be on Amazon Prime now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but if instead of maybe rewatching those goals over and over and over again, you want to instead hear about some exciting up-and-comers, including some Americans that you can listen to us talk about the Scouting Network.
And the good news is that's happening right now.
It is.
All right. The first report we have today is from Michael Bate. He's scouting Tiana Davidson, the 20-year-old American centre-back for the Chicago Red Stars. Michael says Tiana Davidson is heading to the World Cup. After coming back from an injury, Davidson has played the full 90 in all 3 of the Red Stars games. She was then included in Jill Ellis's World Cup squad and will be heading to France. But it's still uncertain if she received a briefcase full of fake cash and jersey like the rest of the US women's national team stars. Have you seen this?
I have not.
So Hulu are trying to promote the idea that they have live sports. I don't fully understand how they have live sports. And essentially they've been doing a sort of postmodern advertising campaign where US national team players, I can't remember which national team player I saw, but they're sort of like opening a briefcase full of cash of like Hulu dollars and being told to say Hulu has live sports. It's almost like a postmodern ad.
Is this the thing where Hulu kind of leaked some of the players that were going to be on the roster because some of those players were in there? There we go. All right. Good stuff, Hulu. And good stuff, Gina Davidson and Michael Bite. Daniel Landau.
Hulu has roster spoilers.
There we go. Daniel Landau scouting Giovanni Reyna, 17-year-old American attacker. After a long winter with only transfer speculation to report, Reyna put on the number 10 shirt for the USMNT U17s and captained his side to a 3-2 comeback win against Canada's U17s. With the team down 2-0 in the second half, Reina floated a cross into the back post, where Gianluca Busio expertly finessed the ball into the back of the net.
I've seen this goal, and finessed is the exact right word.
Exact right word, finessed. Well done, Gianluca. Then in the 69th minute, with the game tied at 2-2, Reina executed a training ground set piece by curling a free kick into the side netting to score what would be the game winner. Not a bad day for young Reina.
The interior side netting.
I was confused by that one as well. Yes, I believe so.
And
otherwise, very bad officiating.
Another exciting thing happened during this game. BVB, Borussia Dortmund, tweeted essentially our guy Reina with the goal. That transfer is not official, right? So they kind of sneakily announced that Reina's going to be a Dortmund player as soon as he turns 18.
They get rid of Pulisic, they bring in another American.
Next up in the young Americans list, Ira Jersey is scouting Ricardo Pepi, the 16-year-old American forward for North Texas SC. Ira says Ricardo went 90 in the first and third group stage wins in the U17 Championship. This is for the men's national team again, which doubles as World Cup qualifying. Although he did not get on the score sheet, he did keep backlines busy, pulled a centre-back out of position, allowing the aforementioned Gio Reyna to shoot the game winner in the 3-2 opening match against Canada. Pepi wasn't exactly absent, but he seemed not to click with some teammates. There's also been a substitution in the scouting ranks here. Ira Jersey has emailed us. He's no longer scouting Ricardo Pepi. Tim Catcher, our friend, remember he played football with us back in the day.
We'll see if he starts sending scouting reports.
Before he left town. Tim, please get on those Ricardo Pepi scouting reports for us.
If you want friendship status to remain. Arthur Halliday scouting Kobe Hernandez-Foster, 16-year-old American defender for the LA Galaxy, also with the U17s. He was a standout performer in the US U17's first two games of the U17 championships, CONCACAF championships. He playing slightly out of position as a left-sided center back, which Travis Clark said he probably would. Against Canada in the first game, KHF hit the sweetest volley you've ever seen from outside the box off of a corner.
This as well. It really is a good volley.
Is it the sweetest volley you've ever seen, though?
No, but it's good.
Correct. The answer,
Ruben Neves is the owner of the sweetest volley I've ever seen.
The answer is Paul Scholes. Unfortunately, it hit a defender.
Weird how we both chose someone from the team we support.
Odd. Unfortunately, it hit a defender before it could break through the net and fell to Axel Alejandre for an easy goal in the second game against Barbados. He started the scoring with a curling left-footed free kick from the right side of the box. Worth noting, Travis and I are going to be talking U17s this week on Top Drawer Soccer Show.
Ooh, lovely. All right. I like Arthur's suggestion that ball would have broken the back of the net.
Almost certainly.
Greyhair Gaming is scouting Indiana Vasilev, the 18-year-old American midfielder for Aston Villa.
Still feels like a fake name.
Indiana his real name's Junior, started his fourth consecutive Premier League 2 Division 2 game as Villa lost 2-0 to Southampton in the semi-final of the promotion playoffs to Premier League 2 Division 1.
Confusing.
With rumours of a youth clear out from Aston Villa in the summer, Mr. Greyhair is curious where that puts Indiana in the overall hierarchy.
I mean, first of all, his name is Junior, as Gerald said. Second of all, they call the dog Indiana. Willie Reed scouting Jesus Vallejo, a 22-year-old Spanish defender for Real Madrid.
I've heard of them.
Vallejo, got his first ever Real Madrid goal in a win over Villarreal. It came on a corner and was the result of absolutely horrendous defending from Villarreal, but a goal is a goal.
A goal is a goal.
Questions remain about Vallejo's ability to remain healthy for an entire season, and there are rumors that he could be loaned or sold outright next summer. So Willie is hoping that maybe he finds a little bit of stability, a little bit of health, and is able to stay with Real Madrid long term.
Todd Ito is scouting Takefusa Kubo, the 17-year-old Japanese attacker for FC Tokyo. Todd says the Japanese FA named the 21-player roster for the 2019 FIFA U20 World Cup, and it was missing a name that many, including your humble messenger, expected to see. We are, of course, talking about Takefusa Kubo. The word on the street, a.k.a. a Fox Sports Asia article Todd read, is that this is because Kubo is expected to be called up to the Japanese senior team. Is that the over 65s? The full Japanese team that will play in the 2019 Copa America starting in June in Brazil. Will we finally get the chance to see Japanese Messi versus Argentine Messi? The mind boggles.
I feel like you could say Japanese Messi versus Messi. That would have been fine. I feel like original Messi gets to be original Messi.
Yeah.
James McRae scouting Rai Hirakawa, a 19-year-old Japanese midfielder for FC Tokyo.
Ooh, all right.
Rai also did not make Japan's squad for the U20 World Cup, although not for the same reasons as Kubo. The reasons for this are unclear, but definitely don't relate to injuries since he played for the Tokyo U23s this past weekend.
Man, Japan must have some deep talent if they're leaving these guys out. These are the guys we know from Japan's youth ranks. They must have a whole other, maybe those kids that played in that game against
the 33 kids or however many it was. Yeah.
Maybe some of them came through.
It could be. Maybe it's just that they know that we know about them and they don't want anyone else to know about them, so they're pulling them out.
Yeah, they're trying to ruin the scouting reports.
Yeah, overanalysis.
Jolene Gilly is scouting Matt Bonswell, the 16-year-old English left-back for RB Leipzig. He's following the Jadon Sancho route. Matt Bonswell was subbed on in the 54th minute of the U17 29 Euros group stage game versus France. He was then nutmegged at the top of the box by the shot that set up France's equalising goal in the 79th minute. Better luck next time, Matt Bonswell.
It could be worse. You could be Ricardo Kishna.
Okay.
Victor Savage scouting Ricardo Kishna. Final report of the day. Kishna is the 24-year-old Dutch winger for Lazio. Kishna did not make a single appearance while on loan at ADO Den Haag. He was thrice on the bench and had 32 minutes in a U21 game, but now that he's returning to parent club Lazio, it looks unlikely he will be contending for minutes there. Kishna has now played in only 62 senior matches in his career and will have to fight his way back into playing time in the final year of his contract in Rome.
Oh, this feels like a story that's coming towards an end. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Ricardo Kishna.
Yes.
We hope for the best.
USL beckons.
USL Championship or League One? Or League Two?
Probably League Two. Why not?
League Two, where he's been unpaid?
I'm kidding.
He's actually too old. He's over 23.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Thank you to everybody for the scouting
With that attitude, he's too
reports. Thanks over the scouting reports. Mm-hmm. If you'd like to join the Scouting Network, or if you'd just like to support the show, the URL is totalsoccershow.com/join. One of the options is Silent Scout, where essentially you just financially support the show. You don't have to do any scouting. If you're waiting on your scout, if you've subscribed and you're waiting on your scout, please email me, Daryl, DARYL, at totalsoccershow.com. Let me know you're waiting. I will get your scout to you. I've had a couple of emails this week. I just want to let you know I have received those emails and will be assigning scouts to those people.
There we are.
Oh, all right.
You got it all?
There's a lot of talking. Yeah.
Did you get a breath?
Just needed a breath. Could you explain the Premier League Champions League setup again to me?
The Premier League Champions League? No.
Yeah, the spots? No?
No.
All right.
Get out of here.
I will just say
You know what I can't explain to you?
What?
Is that Fernando Llorente is the savior we deserve.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow with a listener question special.